Hi everyone, welcome to Viewers Mistakes number 7. This is the series where my viewers send in clips knowing full well they could have done a better job, and I rate them from A to F depending on risk. Have a look at the vehicle in front and how my viewer emerges. We'll come back to that one in a minute. This video is kindly sponsored by Car Vertical. Most people will know that this footage comes from a Tesla, and it's really good to see what's happening from all sides. And my viewer's obviously trying to emerge onto a fast-moving carriageway, but this vehicle in front doesn't get on with it enough. And the first main mistake my viewer makes is that they close down their acceleration space. This is a perfect place to pause the clip and have a little look what should have gone on. My viewer has already, by the looks of it, committed to moving out before the lorry. Even the base Tesla, like the one I had, is a powerful, quick accelerating vehicle, and this can be a little addictive sometimes, but I think my viewer uses the power and the pace at the wrong time. If we have a look at the back of the lorry, there's a nice big space, and that's the one that my viewer should have fitted into. But if you take the slow vehicle in front out of the equation, my viewer's doing the correct thing. They just didn't drive to the situation. The white vehicle in lane 2 gets an A, but my viewer and the black Mercedes both get Ds. In this clip, my viewer thought that they were a little slow to react, and I agree, but I can't tell whether there's a little bit of target fixation or whether there's a little bit of a tell-off with my viewer and the lorry. Either way, it's a dangerous game to be playing with a big vehicle. First thing I'd like to mention that this whole situation is obviously the cyclist's fault, and for that reason they get a K. And before cycling Twitter go absolutely nuts, that was obviously a joke. Now, let's see how the other two scored. I would just like to remind everyone that dashcams do distort images massively, and this lorry pulling out round the cyclist is much closer than it appears. This cyclist is visible, so you know people are going to be causing problems by overtaking. Let's see when my viewer first reacts. At this point, I'd like you to rewind just 5 seconds. You can actually hear my viewer get to the brake and you can see the front of the car dip down. But only do this once, else you'll be caught in a constant loop. But now we are paused here, I think it's a perfect time to do the gradings. The lorry driver, nothing better than an F would suit. Disgraceful driving. My viewer also scores poorly. You cannot be driving at this sort of speed and only looking this distance ahead of you. And for that reason, they score a D. But at least they were skilled and sharp enough to avoid a collision. Thanks a lot for pressing that save button and sending it in. My Golf GTI has been consigned to the history books and I'm really happy with my new Focus ST. I obviously look after my vehicles and I've never had an accident that's been my fault. Touch wood, but I have been crashed into a number of times, so even the best looked after vehicles might have a hidden history, and this is where today's video sponsor Car Vertical is going to help you out. Car Vertical is a service that provides vehicle history checks in 35 countries. They get data from over 900 sources and then show it in one simple report. As we can see from the multiple pictures on this report, this Golf GTI has had a heavy front-end impact at the end of 2020. But this isn't the first time it's been damaged. It was damaged twice within the space of about a year whilst it was in Poland, but the latest collision was in the UK. Although the mileage doesn't show any obvious red flags, or yellow if we're looking at the reports, there are not many records over the years. This lack of history is also carried over into the timeline, which would make me wary. You obviously need to be careful when purchasing something like a Golf GTI, as I found out myself. But if this did come up for sale in the UK, don't you think knowing all this information would be important? I do. Please check out my link in the description, and by using the promo code Ashley when you're checking out your next potential purchase, you can save yourself 10%.
Go right on the roundabout and take the third exit.
In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, continue straight onto Wolgaston Way, B5012.
This clip was sent in because my viewer thinks that they were possibly a little fast and didn't anticipate well enough. This was quite a tough one. The dog was thankfully okay, and it was a good save in the end. But were there any clues? For me, I think the small dog was blocked from view until the very last moment. And this is the first point where it can be seen. My viewer had already assessed the risk of everything else around and even positioned the wheels on or over the centre line. Animals aren't going to give you clues that they're just going to run out, and I honestly think this was a good save. Watch the lady's reaction on the right hand side pavement. For me, all in all, it was a cracking piece of driving. A- just because your speed was 1.3 miles an hour above. Not that it made much difference. Have a look at this situation my viewer gets themselves into whilst the silver car tries to overtake the cyclist. Or do they? How did you first read that one? The analysis points in this clip are quite subtle, but I think they're quite important. Let's look at the attempted overtake of the cyclist by the silver car first. For most people, if they were turning right here, they wouldn't even dream of trying to overtake the cyclist. And if they hadn't have done, and they'd stayed in the position they are in now, this would have been a non-event. My viewer openly admitted that they read this one wrong. But I think you'll agree, this was an easy one to read incorrectly. But my viewer was impatient, they should have held back, so I'm going to give them a C. But they did fix it nice and easily in the end. The silver car for overtaking a cyclist at a silly point gets a D, even though it wasn't too dangerous. Would you have done anything differently here?
I'll give you a number in a minute. Oh, no.
Obviously both could have done loads better. But what grades am I going to give? Don't forget, it's all about risk. For me, this is the crucial point where my viewer could have sorted this without any problems. But they don't. They continue at the same speed. The blue Citroen's got a right signal on and risk has increased. But now at this point, with them obviously not making the left turn and the brake lights off, there's no in the world I would have gone past this one until I was certain. The driver of this blue car is ridiculously bad and obviously gets an F, but I don't think my viewer's much better. I'm going to rate them as a D. They should be much more attentive and changing their speed to suit what's going on, but they don't. They just steer.
I'll give you a number in a minute. Oh, no.
Remember, none of these clips are how the insurance or even the police would see it. It's all about what you can do better. With the icy weather due in the UK over the next couple of months, I thought this clip fits in perfectly as a reminder to show people how to drive, or in fact how not to drive, in these conditions. My viewer again held the hands up, and again, just like the previous clip, there were clues with this, but they were very subtle. What is obvious though is the slippery nature of these roads. We can see that frost is still visible and there are certain sections which look shiny. But the subtle clues come from the vehicle that we're following. Yeah, watch this van up in the distance and watch how it handles this next section of road. The brake lights were on and off, on and off, on and off, on that section which actually doesn't look too bendy. Try and pay a little bit more attention to brake lights. They tell you a lot. This shows you just how quickly things can go wrong. Here's another view from a house CCTV camera. And this next clip's from the house next door. The van's just gone past, and here comes my viewer again. I'm not even going to give my viewer a grade for this. I think it's a good learning point for everyone, and I think it would have caught most road users out. The slippy conditions also caught one of these people out who'd come running. I think they must have heard the collision with the post. Oops. My viewer's car did sustain a little bit of damage, and the post didn't look too healthy either. Just try and remember what I said about brake lights, because the warnings were there, and pretty obviously black ice isn't going to stand out.